Hi everyone, in this video of Accelerated Chess Dragon, we're going to be learning a new chess tactic, and this is the discovery. Now, a discovery is defined when you move one piece that discovers an attack towards another piece. So, for instance, we can see that in a real game like this, it could occur this way. White could play e4, black could play e5, white would go knight f3, black could go knight f6, white would capture the pawn on e5, so this is the Petrov defense. Black plays knight takes e4. And this is a huge mistake because white can play queen e2. Black plays the move knight f6. And this is a horrific blunder because white can just play the move knight c6 check, and after this move, there is no way for black to continue the game. There's an attack on the queen, and even if you defend with queen e7, blocking the check, it still doesn't help because after knight takes e7, bishop takes e7, black has lost his queen for only a minor piece, and this is obviously very bad for black. So that's one example of a discovery. Let's look at a few more. In this next example of a discovery, we can see that the material is completely equal. However, there's only one thing that makes the big difference, and that is the safety and activity of both of the pieces on both sides of the board. Now, if we look at black's side, we can see that black has a bishop on e8, and that bishop isn't doing very much. He has a rook on h8, which is trapped by the king on g8. And the queen on e6, although it's the only active piece, isn't really doing much to be active. So white has a way of actually punishing black for his lack of development. And the move is bishop takes h7 check. And this move is winning because there's an attack on the king, and this is a check, so you cannot really respond to the threat you have on your queen. So that is why black must capture the bishop. You can take it either at the king or the rook, it doesn't matter. And after rook takes e6, f takes e6, black is now down material. In this next position we see here, it looks like white is a lot worse. He has a knight and a bishop against a queen. But not only that, black is also up one pawn. So black has an advantage. But unfortunately for black, it is white to move. Knight g6 check. And the idea is that obviously black has nowhere else to go. You must play the king to h7. And after this king goes to h7, white will play this knight to e7 check. And it doesn't matter whether you block with the pawn to g6, whether you move the king back to h8, or whether you block with the queen to f5. In all cases, black loses his queen. So king h8, knight takes c8, white is completely winning. It's true that the discovery tactic is a very good tactic, but unfortunately there are some times where it doesn't exactly work. Like in this position, it's black to move, and even though it seems like black has a very good discovery that just wins him some material, in reality that's not what it looks like. Black can try playing this knight b7 move. It gets a discovery on the queen on d3, and black is just attacking the rook on a5 with his knight. But unfortunately, white has a few ways of actually getting out without losing any material. The first way is that white can play rook to d5. And this defends it because the rook is just blocking the attack towards the d3 queen. Instead of playing the move rook d5, you could also play the move queen g3. And what queen g3 is trying to do is obviously get a checkmating attack towards this g7 pawn. So you can imagine if black captures the rook on a5, then he's in for some trouble. So you must play something like f6 as black, but this would just allow white to play rook a7, and white has saved himself from material loss. So now that we've covered a bunch of examples where it can happen, let's try to solve some ourselves. So this first position looks like it just came out of the opening, and it's white to move. How would you play here if you were white? Okay, so white can actually play the move knight g5, and this not only gets a discovery on the b7 bishop, but it's also threatening mate on h7. You could also just take the knight with either your pawn or your queen, but it leads to the same result. After bishop b7, the knight will come to c6, and after bishop takes a8, rook takes a8, black is simply down the exchange. The same thing will happen if h takes g5 is played. Bishop b7, knight c6, and after the bishop captures the rook, Black is simply just down the exchange and has no compensation whatsoever. In this second position, we can see that Black is down material. He has only one rook for the queen on b2. But Black has a discovery that can win him the game. If you were playing the black pieces, what would you play here? Okay, so Black can just play the move knight g3 check. And after this move is played, White is just going to lose. The king must come to h2, and now White is in the line of a bishop on c7, which can deliver a discovery. Now, if you were playing Black, many people would probably just capture this bishop on e2 and assume that they're winning. And that is true, but there's an even better way to win, not just by winning material, but by winning the game. So knight e2 is one way, but the even better way to go was actually knight e4 check. And point being that if the pawn is pushed to g3 to try blocking the check out, then Black will just play the move rook f2 check, and now you only have one move, which is to move the king back to h1, and knight takes g3, it is checkmate. So there's only one other move that you could actually play instead of g3, and that is to play king to h1, but that would lead to checkmate right away. So this would be knight f2 checkmate. Let's go on to the last example. In this last position, we can see that the material is very equal, but unfortunately, Black is in the wrong position to assume that this is a draw. So if you were playing the white pieces, how would you crush Black? Okay, so the correct move is actually to play rook takes g7. And this is very nice and creative because if you play king takes g7 as Black, then White will capture the rook on d7. And at first it seems like White is just giving up material here and there, but the point of this queen takes d7 move is actually very nice. After queen takes d7 is played by Black, White will play e6 check. And now not only is there a check towards the Black king, but there's also an attack towards this Black queen. So after you move the king, say to f8, White will capture the queen on d7, and White has now gotten an extra piece. So I hope you all enjoyed the video, and if you have any suggestions or feedback for me, please let me know in the comment section, and stay tuned for more chess.